A store owner helped a young boy. You won't believe what happened next. Hello, friends. What comes to your mind when you first hear the word miracle? Definitely someone splitting the sea for his people to flee a tyrant, or a man single-handedly standing up for a small army to delay them long enough for his people to get away from danger. But what you might not consider are the small, selfless acts you regularly do and, unbeknown to you, may brighten someone's day or even impact their entire life. Today's story is about such an unsung hero whose deeds touched the lives of many people in the most beautiful way. But before we start, make sure to subscribe if you haven't and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. It all started in a small village where not much was going on and everyone knew each other. In a small grocery store where a few people were hastily moving about, picking up what they needed as dinner time was approaching. Among the customers was a young man named David, who was looking for something when his attention was caught by the presence of a thin young boy in ragged clothes. Unlike everybody else around him, the kid didn't buy anything. All he did was stand in front of the sweet section, greedily eyeing a bar of chocolate. It was clear that the boy really desired it, but he couldn't afford it. David contemplated the little boy for a while. Then, when he moved closer to the sweet section to check the price of the chocolate bar, it was reasonably cheap, so the man decided to buy it for the boy and brighten his day. David picked up the chocolate bar and added it to his basket, then walked to the counter. Upon arriving at the counter, he found Mr. Mueller, the shop owner, already in the middle of conversation with the young boy that David saw a while ago. With a gentle smile, Mr. Mueller said to the boy, "Hello, Harry. How are you doing? And how's your mother?" Despite his ragged look, the boy was very polite and greeted Mr. Mueller back and then said, "I'm fine and my mother's getting better." Then he innocently added with admiration, "That chocolate bar is beautiful." The last remark made Mr. Mueller smile and he nodded in agreement, then asked the boy if he could help him with anything. And the boy said that he just wanted to check what Mr. Mueller had in his store. Throughout all of this, David just stood there witnessing the exchange between the store owner and the boy. Then as the boy was leaving, Mr. Mueller stopped him, saying, "Do you want to buy that beautiful chocolate bar?" The boy turned around and apologetically replied, "I'm sure it's tasty, but I don't have the money to buy it." You'd expect that the conversation stopped there. But Mr. Mueller, who apparently expected that answer from the boy, pretended to be taking a second to think, then said, "Do you have anything you can give me in exchange of that chocolate bar?" The question caught the boy off guard. As he stood there, thinking that, he then sheepishly replied, "I've nothing of value to give you, Mr. Mueller." At this moment, the store owner said, "What about a glass ball?" Other kids regularly exchange their glass ball for sweets at my store. To that, the boy's eyes just lit up as he immediately dug his hands into his pockets and started fishing for a glass ball that was in there. Once he found it, he lifted it up for Mr. Mueller to see and said, "I have this one if you like it." Mr. Mueller reached for the blue glass ball and asked the boy to let him check it first. Baffled by the whole situation and the exchange deal that was being negotiated in front of him, David got even more interested in the conversation and placed his basket on the ground as he continued to listen carefully to Mr. Mueller and the little Harry, wondering what would happen next. Upon closer inspection, Mr. Mueller said, "The blue ball's a beautiful one, but unfortunately I'm looking for a red one." To that, the boy immediately replied, "I do have a red glass ball at home." At that moment, Mr. Mueller returned the glass ball to Harry and told him that he could take the chocolate, given that he brings Mr. Mueller the red ball next time he passes by the store. And the boy joyfully accepted the deal and hastily headed towards the sweet section to claim his prize. What Mr. Mueller left David in awe as he stood there admiring what shop owner did, as with such a simple gesture, he made that boy happy beyond words. So absorbed by the exchange that just took place in front of him, David didn't notice Mrs. Mueller was standing right next to him, watching as her husband struck a deal with little Harry. Noticing David's amazement, she said, "That happens quite often at our store, as two other boys visit regularly to exchange their glass balls for goods and grocery." Surprised by what Miss Mueller just said, David turned around and asked her why he did that, to which she replied, "The boys come from poor families that can barely afford buying food, and in order to help them, Mr. Mueller trades their glass balls for groceries and vegetables." Yet that wasn't all, as things got even more interesting when Mrs. Mueller explained that her husband never takes the glass balls, as every time the kids brought the glass balls he asked them for the previous time, Mr. Mueller would just pretend that he didn't like it and give them a bag of groceries, asking them to return next time with a ball of another color. And things went on like that forever. So basically, Mr. Mueller was giving the kids free groceries and sweets without taking anything in exchange. Yet his glass ball story made the boys feel like they were doing a fair exchange and didn't feel like Mr. Mueller was pitying them or helping them. David simply couldn't resist smiling as Mrs. Mueller told him about the whole thing, and he was so impressed by the middle-aged shop owner the length he went to selflessly help 3 poor kids, all the while making them feel proud for doing an honest exchange. Years passed by and David moved out of town to live in Montana. Yet he never forgot his hometown, nor did he forget Mr. Mueller's extraordinary generosity and the whole glass ball story. A couple decades down the road, David visited his hometown again, and a few days after his arrival, he heard that Mr. Mueller, the store owner, passed away. Saddened by the news, David decided to attend the funeral and pay his respect to an extraordinary man that impressed him so deeply. While attending the ceremony, David noticed 3 young men, all in black suits, looking sharp and elegant, who approached Mrs. Mueller. Each of them hugged the grieving woman and kissed her on the cheek. As they moved to where Mr. Mueller's coffin was placed, they all couldn't hold their tears as, one by one, they reached to touch the deceased man's pale hand. Later on, David approached Mrs. Mueller to express his condolences and told her that her husband was such a great man as he never forgot the glass ball incident he witnessed 2 decades ago. To that, Mrs. Mueller's tearful eyes lit up as she took hold of David's hand and guided him toward the coffin. And once they arrived there, she told them that the 3 men who were standing there a while ago were the 3 boys her husband used to help. Despite the deprived childhood they had to endure and all the hardships they went through, they grow up to be quite successful men, as each of them now owns his own successful business. The 3 men never forgot what Mr. Mueller did for them, and now, as Mr. Mueller couldn't change his mind about the glass ball's color, they came to pay their debts and close the deals once and for all. David didn't quite understand what Mrs. Mueller meant by that, but when he checked the coffin once again, he saw 3 glass balls resting on it, brightly shining. At that moment, David couldn't hold back his tears as he realized that the 3 boys never forgot the generosity of Mr. Mueller, who, one way or another, played a role in them becoming successful people. Whether the story really happened or it's just a fiction remains up for speculation. Yet the moral it teaches must be a principle by which we all go. If Mr. Mueller didn't disguise his help in the form of a deal, the kids might have felt embarrassed and refused his help, or they would have got used to having stuff for free and so never relied about themselves. Yet Mr. Mueller helped the 3 young boys, all the while teaching them that nothing comes for free, even if the price is just a red glass ball. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, don't forget to leave a thumbs up and tell us what you think about it in the comment section below.